Slow. We're being invaded, but instead of little green aliens, it's the big tech companies. And instead of UFOs, they're using that little phone in your back pocket to learn more about you and influence you more than you probably know. Join us today on the Happy Holy Hour for what is not a conspiracy theory episode.
Sounds like it to me.
We're just gonna. I need to do another.
No, you're good. You're good.
Well, come on, you need a drink, partner. Expecting trouble? I'm always expecting trouble. What do you think you're cooking around here?
Stop it now, I mean it. You're ignorant. You're acting like a child.
It's definitely gold right there.
That is gold.
Oh, jeez.
Liquid gold.
It's like for what is definitely not a conspiracy theory.
So don't you even accuse us. All right.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, to the Happy Holy Hour podcast. I'm Travis, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Jared and Tyler.
Hello.
Yeet. Today, we're going to be talking about what, again, is not a conspiracy theory episode. We're going to be talking about the digital invasion, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But right now, I got to catch up with my boys because it's been a busy time, hasn't it?
Very much so, man.
I haven't seen you guys or felt like I've talked to you guys in a while. Jared, you were out last episode, and you come back clean now.
I am clean. I am free from that smoky white devil. Oh, wait. Are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah. No. To clarify,
coronavirus.
Yes.
Jared, you had to get tested for work, and you are negative.
Yeah, I had I guess a fever. Got sick. Missed 2 days of work, and they're like, "Yeah, you need to go get tested."
Nice. You were out.
So
you feeling better now?
Yeah, I'm good.
You're not sharing anything with us?
No.
Okay.
No, not that I know.
Just want to double check. Tyler, what about you? You're recovering from work.
Yeah.
You had a big event.
Yeah, so that the ministry that I work for had the absolute privilege of hosting an event to bless pastors and, refresh them in many ways, including a nice meal from Shady Maple, which is awesome. If you're from around here, you know that that's a big deal. And we got to partner with some really cool ministries like Reformation 21, Banner of Truth, P&R Publishing, Olive Tree, to give a lot of resources away to pastors, which was an awesome experience to be a part of.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because I was there too. I was there as one vendor, sponsor. I guess we were calling them, not vendor, but kind of like a vendor. Anyway, I was there with the ministry I work at a camp, and we were doing like a giveaway thing for pastors, just a small part to help them. But man, you guys really took it to the next level. It was really professional, and I think pastors really felt appreciated and blessed. It was pretty cool. They walked out of there with over $1,000 worth of resources that they took advantage of everything. I think they said it was pretty cool.
It was awesome. And pastors this year especially have been going through just a really tough time. When you have a flock of sheep, is that what you call a bunch of sheep? A flock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a flock or herd.
Yeah.
Wait.
A stampede.
Oh no. What if
when you
is
have
it called yeah, it's got to be a flock of sheep. But now I'm just thinking goose season's in, and I'm thinking flock of geese, and I'm like, geese season.
Well,
goose
regardless, when you have a bunch of sheep,
Yeah.
some sheep might not be adjusting that well to the times with coronavirus and stuff. So pastors have been put through the ringer, and it was a really great time to just be able to bless them. And yes, Brad's in our studio, and we did just confirm it is a flock of sheep.
We're real educated.
Perfect.
I thought flock only applied to bird and game.
What's the word for a group of crows though? Isn't that something?
That's a murder.
Yeah,
it's a murder of crows.
Jeez.
But then what's a gaggle? Isn't that geese?
I couldn't tell you.
I think it's geese.
I think it's a flock of geese.
It's a gaggle of geese.
Anyway, I've also been busy. I've also been busy lately networking for this podcast. I've also been producing another podcast called the Stewardology Podcast. I've been trying to just be a better
check
human.
that out.
Yeah,
they're kind of partners with us.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of like low key ministry
affiliates.
Partners. Yeah,
whatever you want.
We like to promote each other a little bit. I've also been annoyed lately with the amount of campaigns calling my cell phone and texting me, and it was funny because I worked on a congressional campaign over the last few months, and I realized that politics is probably something that I
So you
don't
feel like
want to be
convicted,
involved
you're
in.
like helping them with the marketing, and then you're getting targeted with the marketing.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm just
tasting your own medicine there.
listen, please stop.
I know what
Literally,
you're doing.
The other day, so my phone has a call blocker. And I got a call the other day. It literally said political call. I was like, what the frick is this?
I actually have not gotten a single one yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who do you have as a carrier?
Verizon.
They must be hooking you up, man. That's great.
Yeah.
So I guess that leads into our topic is big tech. Our phones know
Talk
a lot
about big
about
tech,
us, and
Verizon.
people have a lot of access to the stuff that we have. In terms of like what we're interested in, what our political affiliations are, and we get ads that are targeted to us. So today's episode should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully it doesn't sound too much like a conspiracy episode. But having said that, is it just me, or is sometimes like when I'm talking about a subject, like I'll like look on Facebook or something and there's ads for what I've talked about. Not like I know there's like when you type stuff in and you search things, it populates with ads. But I'm talking just like your screen was off, whatever, in the pocket and you're in the other room or something. And I think I was talking about Lord of the Rings one day. I don't know how it came up, whatever. And I kid you not, I go look at my phone right afterwards and there's a bunch of Lord of the Rings ads. And I'm like, I didn't Google search anything. I just talked about it. And all of a sudden, I'm just saying.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. The other day, background, Natalie and I do all of our baby shopping on Natalie's phone. I have never searched any kind of baby product on my phone. And we were talking about this cup for little children, like a little silicone cup so it doesn't break or whatever. And what do you know? I'm looking through Facebook, and what are they advertising? Those exact cups that we were talking about.
Crazy.
I was looking up hard drives this week, or I back up. I wasn't looking them up. I was talking to my coworker about hard drives because that's the kind of nerd that I am.
Nice.
And on Facebook there was now ads for external hard drives, and I was like, get out of here.
I'm telling you, man.
Can I tell you guys about a conspiracy theory I heard today? I think it's the most.
Go for it. Now we are a conspiracy theory episode. I take everything back. I'm so sorry, people.
So I heard someone talk about how the weather is controlled by 4 lasers that come out of Alaska.
Is that a real thing?
Literally, yes. Like there are 4 lasers that shoot out of Alaska and control the world's weather.
God help us.
Yeah. I was like, wow, you believe in Alaska?
So I can't was that story real or was that the joke?
No, that was a real story.
Okay, because that kind of sounded like a joke, like where that was the punchline.
I mean, it worked out.
I was really confused.
It worked out that way, but yes, it actually happened.
Good dad.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been crazy busy for everybody. I know with Bonnie and I, we've been trying to use our media time a little more wisely and maybe watch some more educational stuff. So we were watching The Social Dilemma, which is a film. I know it's on Netflix, but I think it's other places as well. I wanted to clarify because some people are in the cancel Netflix, so people be you have Netflix. Actually, we still watch it on her dad's account.
That's what we do.
That's most
living
of our
the dream.
Yeah, we just reach off of our friends.
Nobody actually pays for Netflix. The government.
Sorry, father-in-law, if you're listening. Oh my goodness. Anyway, it was pretty good. It was talking about big tech and social media and just how much, kind of the darker side of our digital use. And it was mostly made up. They were interviewing people who were in big tech companies or had been the president of Pinterest and all these other people who worked in Facebook, Google, all these different things. And it was really interesting. I didn't agree with some of their worldview frameworks, but I do agree with a lot of the factual stuff they were talking about, and it's just eye-opening. A lot of it I knew before. I'm auditing a class. One of them is Intro to Digital Communication, so we talk about the ethics and everything like that, which is interesting. But yeah, so after we watched that, we're like, whoa, this is really crazy. And so I was like, hey, we should do an episode on it. So here we are.
For what is definitely not a conspiracy theory episode.
Absolutely not.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're trying not. We'll see what happens.
See where this gets us.
So to kick us off, because some people will be like, is this really a problem? Like, obviously, we all use digital media to some extent. But here are just a few stats to chew on, think about, put things in perspective. ABC News in a 2019 article stated that teens are spending an average of 7 hours, 22 minutes per day on their phone. Now, I don't know if this is actually correct. I mean, I know there generally tends to be a difference depending on your age, but everywhere else I was looking, I think the average was like 3 to 5 hours. So, I mean, I believe probably teens are a little higher, but that does seem pretty high. But either way, it's the average for adult is still like 3 to 5 hours.
Probably depends how they're measuring that too.
Yeah.
I mean,
although the 3 to 5 hours might have just been like on their phones. That's not other like that. I think it was just their phones. So like that doesn't include time you sit in front of watching your TV, time on your computer. That's just time on their phone. So like, which it is just a lot of time, but imagine how much more time it would be if we like added all that, like screen time. I guess that would be the way to call it. Like you add all your screen time together, it would be quite a lot. So that's one statistic. And then another one, these come from techjury.com, and you can go there to find their like the actual specific sources where they got it from. But users spend an average of 2 hours, 51 minutes a day on their smartphones. In comparison, quality time they spend with their families amounts to less than 45 minutes a day, which I was like, wow, that's crazy. Average user touches their phone 2,617 times a day. And the average smartphone owner unlocks their phones 150 times a day. I saw that, guys. You guys were touching your phones. I saw that. You busted.
My hands burned from holding it.
Conviction. And then 66% of the population shows sign of smartphone addiction or technology addiction.
Nomophobia.
Yeah, nomophobia.
Nomophobia.
Thank you.
Is that the fear of gnomes?
Thank you. I've really had trouble pronouncing things today. Like we were joking about it earlier today. Normally I'm pretty good, but today I'm off. Anyway, it was named the People's Word of 2018.
Nomophobia.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the fear of not having your smartphone in hand, essentially. So like
FOMO.
That's the fear of missing out, which is definitely connected to it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's amazing how it affects, like, if you're on your phone that much or like you have that much screen time, like how does that affect like consciously and subconsciously, like how you act during the day? Like how much sleep do you get? Like what if you're always having to have your phone in your hand? You know, what are you missing out on?
Yeah. Well, too, and we won't really talk about this in this episode, but there's a lot of like research and questions on like how much does that actually affect your brain chemistry and like gray matter and all of that kind of stuff, which we won't get into, but really fascinating stuff. So yeah, those are just a few statistics, and those are really just talking about your phone. So when you really think about like how much time are you on your computer, in front of a TV, different things like that, it's probably going to be even like more drastic. Yeah. And so I think this helps put things in a little bit of perspective. I think sometimes we don't realize just how big a part of it plays in our lives and how addicted we really are to these things.
Well, it's crazy. You think about like, as a functioning member of society, how much can you get done without your phone? It's interesting.
Yeah. Now we live in such a fast-paced world where people expect immediately results and answers, and so like even just for your job and stuff, like I sometimes feel like I have a responsibility or an obligation to immediately respond to things as I see them happen, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But so we're just going to talk a little bit more, dive a little deeper into this and how technology affects us on our individual lives, and then our interpersonal lives and those around us, and then even on a kind of a global, national, cultural, societal scale on a larger level, and then maybe bring some practical applications to this and ask really, okay, so now what? So first, technology affects our individual lives. I think we probably see this most in our sleeping and working habits. and subconscious habits. I know, like for work the other day, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like test and see like how often do I reach for my phone and stuff like that. And it was like pretty often. And we don't realize, I was reading an article that was saying like it's not just about how many times a day you reach for your phone like affects your work habits, but it's like how you do it, like how it's spaced out, because every time you switch from a task or get interrupted, there's a longer period of time that your like your workflow, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like your routine?
Yeah, you're like how productive you are. That's what I'm looking for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Productivity.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a really long day, guys.
Got you, man.
Thanks. Thanks. But all of that decreases. So every time you go for your phone, you may only be on your phone for 3 seconds, but there's 10 minutes before you're really back into your routine.
Yeah.
And so if you're like the average person checks it like 30 times during their work hours. And so you take that and you multiply how many minutes it takes away from your routine, and it really cuts down on how productive you are. Yeah.
At my work, we have tablets in the entrance of all of our buildings. And we use them. It has a scanner. We use them to scan barcodes, to process work orders, to clock in, and so every minute of our day is basically being calculated. So it got to the point where they had to put a basket outside of the bathroom with a sign saying, "Please leave your phones in this basket while you're in the bathroom."
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's affecting people's time on their phone in their work.
Fun thought. How many work hours a year do you spend in the bathroom? Like when you add up like whatever, an average of 5-10 minutes a day, like that's gotta add up where you're getting paid.
That's wild.
To use the bathroom. Anyway.
And this has come up on the podcast a lot, but I'm lactose intolerant.
Same.
So when I used to drink like protein shakes and like with like milk in it and stuff before I knew that I was intolerant to the lactose, and yeah, dude, it was real.
If you eat pizza the night before and come into work, it's not a good day.
I don't want to know.
It's not a good day.
Oh my goodness. So that was working habits, but sleeping habits too. Like think how many hours we lose from sleep on our phones. I don't know. I wonder if it affects us if we have like a lot of people sleep with their phones right next to them. I wonder if that like affects our brains or not. I don't know.
There's been a lot of studies. I don't have any hard facts on this, but there's been a lot of studies about people that sleep with their phones versus people that sleep without their phones. And 9 times out of 10, the people that sleep without their phones get better sleep.
Probably because they're simply not on their phones as late, Yeah. But anyway, like subconscious habits too. Like how many times do you like just reach for your phone almost subconsciously? Like, like obviously when a notification goes off, but sometimes even when not, you're like, oh, let's see if something like...
Wait, what?
Just
Sorry,
ingrained.
I was looking at my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's
Jared.
It's basically like when your brain when you don't know what to do next, or when you're having like a pause in your productivity. It's like gotta check the phone, gotta touch it. You know, it's
crazy.
Then
Then
think about, and you guys know I'm always going into the spiritual aspect of things.
Why would you do that on this podcast?
Come on.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just a weird habit I have, I guess. But like it makes you think about like, if we look at our phones that much, are we making that an idol?
I would, yeah. The phones are definitely like everybody in our culture has one. However, like you do kind of need one now. Like
it's hard to function.
Yeah, because a lot of times your work will require you to at least be accessible. Mm-hmm. And when you need to call your family, like I know a couple of guys that still have basic phones, and I think they're way happier than everyone else.
Yeah, I thought about that, honestly. I was like, should I? But I use it for work and ministry a lot. Like I do a lot of work on my phone, and I'm like, that would be...
I had a flip phone when I was working in the restaurant industry as like a mental and spiritual cleansing in my life. And oh man, it was so good. It was so good. And the only reason I went back was because I have things that I need to do on it.
Yeah.
That I was prohibited by because I didn't have a smartphone.
Yeah. It's kind of sad. Like there are times where I wish I could just get rid of all social media, all these things, but it always keeps coming back to like, oh, I need it for work, I need it for ministry, everything. But
it makes me think about like moving into our next topic.
Yeah.
About interpersonal relationships, about how relationships are impacted
Yeah.
by smartphones. Like, if, and we'll get into this in a minute, but like the digital self aspect of things, like who you create yourself to be online.
Yeah. And not only like create, but like in that documentary, I don't remember the guy's exact phrasing, but he was really talking about the idea how like your digital life is so intertwined with your real life, and the younger generation, like their whole identity is not like there's this fact of like this is identity we put forward on social media and things like that, but like just communication wise, it's like all completely intertwined and inseparable, where the relationships we have are really built on digital media. I was even thinking like my wife and I, when we were dating long distance. And so like for a couple years, like all of our communication happened digitally. And not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but even just that thought alone, like, man, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And on the same token, like we talked about it, and I think in the 2 podcasts ago, we talked about just briefly about the selfie generation and how it can, there's a lot about the phones and technology that is a part of our life, but then at the same time, our life becomes a part of about us and not about anyone else.
So it's like a narcissistic mentality.
Yeah, I mean, there's a front camera on your phone.
Yeah.
Facing your own face.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm going to try to, I have a lot to say right now, but I'm going to try to keep it short. When I was in college, I studied sociology. That was my major. And a lot of my research was on the digital media aspect of things, specifically what's called the digital self. Now, you have a personality in your life. Like Jared, as you sit across the table from me, you have a personality. You have a persona that exists in front of me that we can communicate with. Travis, you're the same. Now, when you created your Facebook profile, you might not have noticed this, but you are now creating a different version of yourself. Because now you're not, think about it. When you're with me and we're having a conversation, you as a person are fully in front of me, like we are fully together. You can't really hide anything from me. That sounded creepy, but you can't.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. You can't really hide crucial parts of your personality from me, as I said across from you. But on the digital media world, like on Facebook or Twitter, you can pick and choose what people see, regarding you. You can create a persona that's different from what you are in real life, and that's called the digital self. And I'm sure we can all relate to this because as you post online, I'm sure you don't really post the bad and awful things about your life. You really only post the fun, great things that people are going to look in awe about when they see your profile. But it's interesting. I wrote a 64-page paper in college about the relationship between Facebook profile pictures and identity expression. And now that I think about it, it's like, wow, that was kind of a waste of time, but not really. It was my thesis paper. But like, think about it. We're a people meant to be in community, and social media can be a great tool at connecting people. But usually we are apart when we're using it. So we are, using it, trying to connect to each other, but we're apart all at the same time.
Can I just mention something that's really interesting about that? Is when people are together on their phones, it creates a very awkward atmosphere.
It does.
Like everyone's sitting on their phone in the room and nobody's talking to each other, but they're all texting. Everyone like is thinking in the back of their mind, but they're not actually saying it. Like, this is really awkward. I'm gonna leave.
How do I talk to people?
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times, like, you're exactly right. We're alone together. Think about that. That's actually a book I read in college, I think, about technology. Like, we're increasingly more connected, but we're also increasingly becoming more alone. And a lot of times, let's look at comparison. Okay, so when young people especially are on social media, they're comparing themselves to other people on social media, whether it's beauty or talents, popularity, you name it, it's being compared. And it's being watched. So when you present your digital self as a better version of yourself and people are comparing themselves to the best parts of you, and they are recognizing that they have faults that they might not think you have. Like, they think you're perfect based on your digital media. People are often, people wonder why depression and anxiety are at an all-time high. And social media, I think, is a big part of this. I mean, young girls are not eating because they want to be as skinny as other girls. They're wearing less clothes to try to be as attractive as the other popular girls that they might see as being prettier because that's all that they post online. Young men might feel shame because they might not, feel as skilled as some of the DIY guys on Facebook or something like that. So it's really interesting. The examples are endless. And don't compare yourself to other, it's huge.
I'm going to show my age here for a minute, but last night my wife was explaining to me what TikTok is.
I'm not on TikTok.
It's literally that. It's people just comparing themselves to the original of a video. And it's horrendous. And it's exactly what you just explained. It's so crazy.
Well, and like shame, guilt, jealousy, sadness, depression, all of these can be outcomes of that comparison. Comparison is a thief of joy. You're sitting there and you're constantly comparing yourself to someone who's only putting out their best self online, and it's going to steal your joy from you if you think that your identity is rooted there. And a lot of times this jealousy, sadness, depression, sometimes that can lead to the worst, which is suicide. And on average, I pulled a stat this morning, there's 123 suicides per day. Now, given not all of those are attributed to social media comparison, that kind of stuff. But some of them are. And I know there was one in my community a few years back, especially, that was like kind of big time. It really hit home for a lot of people.
Yeah. I know we've all probably known one, if not more, that have committed suicide. And it does, man, it rocks.
Yeah,
the community.
So social media, especially, right? So we're talking about big tech. Social media is kind of like the big part in the big tech industry. It can be a relationship breaker or a relationship maker. And I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying that social media is going to lead to suicide. That's a very drastic comparison. But dangerous things happen when our identity is wrapped up in the digital self. When you're fully diving into your online identity, neglecting your actual identity, you lose yourself, and you can pursue this perfect version of yourself that is just going to get you more likes or more followers. So it's a dangerous thing. Like we were talking about, we're increasingly becoming alone together, which is a weird concept. Well,
it's interesting. And now we're kind of starting to get into what goes on behind the scenes, which is what I think is one of the most fascinating parts, because people, I think in general, kind of have an understanding of the negative side effects of social media and things that we've talked about. I think we need to be reminded of them, but you've been starting to hear this for a little while now, but I don't think people really understand what's really going on behind the scenes. And so maybe let's spend a little time talking about that. Have you guys read anything about this or looked into this at all?
I don't want to get too far into conspiracy, but I know that when you're dealing with big tech and online community, a lot of times, for example, Facebook, do they or do they not have people monitoring what things are put out there? Are they biased, conservative, or liberal? So there's a lot to think about in terms of what content you're actually consuming. Yeah, and that may or may not be good. I don't know. I don't want to get too far into that. But
yeah, I know. And the documentary we watched touched on some of that. And again, a documentary is always made for a purpose and to influence. And you could tell what their purpose was just by the mood, the mood in the interviews and the camera angles and everything like that. So I think their goal is to show how drastic it was, and I think it is in a lot of respects, but I don't think people realize that one of the key phrases they use in the documentary is you're really not the consumer. You're the product being sold. And so people don't realize it's really an information gathering and selling business. When you're online, everything you do is being carefully tracked and recorded.
You can buy, I did this in college for a project. You can buy data from Twitter on people. So you can actually buy Twitter, I want to buy information on 10 million U.S. citizens and what they are searching for in terms of hashtags. Like you can actually buy data, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And there's ethical hoops you have to jump through, because obviously if you're doing it for research, you have to get permission from your research board and all that stuff. But yeah, man, it's crazy how accessible that is and how easy it is for Twitter to just say, "Yep, here." That's not
scary.
Yeah, and we don't really read that fine print. We're just like, oh, it's a free platform, but it's really not. It's free. They're making tons of money on it, and they're really selling your information.
Well, it's a good thing that the Happy Holy Hour is not on Twitter.
We're not on Twitter.
We don't tweet.
Well, can we talk about for a second, like media bias? So, like, especially now, like we're in election season.
Yeah.
When this is recorded, we are still like 3 weeks out ahead of the presidential election in the United States. But I know a lot of people will only watch news from like one news source, which leads to a crazy amount of just confirmation bias. And that happens when you're only surrounded by the news or information that you like. You know, you have an opinion, you're listening to biased news, and they tell you what you want to hear, and you're like, good, I'm right, you know?
Yeah.
But like the biggest example of this, I would say, you know, it's on both sides. Like, let's acknowledge that for a second. Fox News is essentially conservative propaganda. CNN is also just liberal propaganda. So it's on both sides of the aisle. And to find like actual information that is not like biased nowadays is actually really hard. You have to do some searching, and you have to know how to search it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just expect it to be given
Well,
to
I
you.
think too, like, given how much, big tech like knows you, understands you, because it's really like these algorithms, and I don't know necessarily how they work, but they're really learning you. They're learning what you like, what you don't like, what your habits are, what's going to keep, because their goal is to keep you more and more engaged on the screen.
Yeah. Well, and
so they can
leads
sell more of
to-
the information. But since they're able to do that, like, that's going to multiply the effects of the, the confirmation bias, because it's going to gather, oh, he likes whatever.
Yeah.
This political party or that. And then all they're going to do is, like, they're going to leave out the other things you don't like and just, channel everything that you do like. And so you're going to be more and more in your little greenhouse bubble. So I think it's getting harder to actually engage with people in a meaningful way that maybe disagree with you. I mean, you can always comment and stuff on people's things, but really, like, do you really understand the arguments from the other side? It's hard to actually get to the, the actual events or what someone actually said. Yeah, the root source of it. And I think that's what we need to do as much as possible.
Well, you know what? Like, all the media bias, you know what that leads to is sensationalism.
Right.
So now not only do you have people that are just simply misinformed, you have people that are very passionate about the misinformation that they have. And that leads to sensationalism. So, like you said, it's important to kind of get out of your bubble a little bit and try to get to that source of truth. And but all while standing firmly on the word of God.
Yeah.
It's important to do that. Being Christian, I guess a little segue into like Christianity in this episode. We are the Happy Holy Hour, aren't we? Being Christian doesn't mean being sheltered. Christians should actually be really good discerners. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Yeah. And we should be making decisions based off of wisdom that would ultimately glorify God, rather than just like the sensational human, just like the feelings that we get off of the news that we watch.
Yeah, because it's crazy now. Like, you look at the world and you're like, how did we get here and all the crazy stuff? How is this allowed to go on? How do people like buy into this stuff? But it's actually really simple, because we're like, okay, we get all of our information basically from digital media. Digital media like knows exactly what you like and filters exactly what you're going to want to believe as truth. And like, so your whole world, if you only engage with one news source or whatever, like, your whole like understanding of what current events actually happened, what someone actually said, is going to be totally skewed. So like, if we get, because now you go to the root source of what someone said, and you watch one news station, and you're like, they're polar opposites, and neither of them is what, like, you're like, how did you get that out of what the person actually said?
Yeah.
And then you talk to someone and they're like, enraged about whatever, and you're like, actually, like, this is what actually happened, but they never went to the root source. So I think it is super important, and now, people's ability, I guess it's just been enhanced, like, this has always been a danger that we can fall into, but now it's even easier because we're so disconnected from other people around us, and we can tailor whatever sources of information are coming into our lives. So
I had a conversation with somebody at work the other day, and they were asking me, like, how do you know when you're making the right choice? Like, and this guy that I'm talking to, he's on the fence about Christianity. And he was like, how do you know when is the right choice? Like, if everything you do is just filthy rags, because we were having a conversation about good deeds. And I told him, like, the only way that you can know what you're doing is the right thing is by looking at absolute truths. And the only absolute truth we have in this world is God's word.
Amen.
So when we look at the Bible, we see God's wisdom, we see his discernment, and we learn how to apply that in our day-to-day lives. And I think that's something that's getting lost in our generation.
Yeah. I had a friend actually talk to me the other day. They were like, so you do a podcast called The Happy Holy Hour. I said, yeah. He said, what's your sales pitch? It's like, that's actually a really great question. And the first thing that I went to is, our culture loves to pick apart and destroy absolute truth. Like you said, we live in a postmodern culture, and young people like us in our generation are just accepting that. And they're not critical anymore about what is absolute truth. So then I was like, our podcast, every topic, it seems like when we talk about things, we're always digging back to that absolute truth. How do we connect this issue with the Word of God so that we can apply it to our lives? And yeah, like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, when we're looking at news sources and we're sensationalized by media, and politics is just digging under our skin, what can we do to remedy that? Let's look to the Word of God. It's absolute truth. Let's look to the hope that is Jesus Christ, and let's not be so like, oh man, if the Democrats are elected, the Antichrist is coming. It's like, okay, listen. God is sovereign. Yeah. I just did the Trump hands. If you see the video. But God is sovereign.
This truth is huge.
And it's huge. But like, he's not surprised by where our nation is. He, Westminster Confession of Faith, God is preordained everything that comes to pass.
All of this that's happening has happened before.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing new under the sun,
exactly. Right? And I think about like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. Or They were in a area that was besieged by Babylon, and they were under a pagan idol-worshipping country that was reigned by this iron fist regime, Nebuchadnezzar, and like their people were being enslaved, and it was just horrendous. And yet Daniel and the three still trusted God and listened to his word.
Amen.
And what came out of it? They were saved from a fiery death, being mauled by lions. I mean, Daniel survived through 4 different regimes, and it's because he understood that God is in control. Nebuchadnezzar may have control over the city, but God is over control of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah. He has the heart of the king. Right?
Yeah.
He raises them up and tears them down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit of avocation. This is interesting because this episode is going to be released after the election.
Yeah.
So right now, we have no idea what's going to happen. But what we do know is that the Lord is sovereign. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be great.
And that's the absolute truth.
And that is the truth. So Travis, we're running out of time. Why don't you take us through some applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've talked about a bunch of different things and a bunch of different segues and
what is
rabbit trails.
Definitely not
most
a
definitely right. It may have sounded like it, but again, that's not what we're trying to be, and it's not a healthy way to approach this, being a little more serious, But I do think it's healthy to be informed, and we mentioned this, understand the bigger picture of what's going on, so we can act wisely and be discerning when it comes to digital media and the role it plays in our lives, which is what we should be doing in every area of our life, in our lives,
In our
life. There we go.
Everyone look awkwardly into the camera.
All right. Well,
so let's just bring this back to a couple points of just really basic application, because digital media is a huge part of our lives, and it is important. It can be addictive. It can be unhealthy. There are unhealthy side effects to it. So just number one point of application is understand the bigger picture, understand what's going on behind the scenes, and why it works the way it does. Do a self-assessment is number two, and see how much digital media is affecting your individual life and your personal life and the world in which you live.
That's a big one. We went through that quick, but understand it's a big one. Do a self-assessment. Sit back and really look.
How many hours do you spend on a day?
And Apple actually provides that tool.
I get a week update, was I more or less on my phone? Sometimes it's up 30%, sometimes it's down 20%. But yeah, so really do a self-assessment, and take control of how much time you're spending. Don't let it get away from you, because it really can. Number three is understand that it's addictive, and why it's addictive and so pervasive is because that's the way it's designed. They want you to be on the phone. Why do you scroll on your phone? They studied how gambling worked in the slot machines, and our brains, we like to do that motion of pulling down, and that's why it's scrolling. These things were thoughtfully designed. Millions of dollars were poured into it, and you have people's jobs are to design these things so that they're more and more addictive and pervasive, so you'll spend more and more time on it, so they gather more and more information, and they make more money by selling it. So you could be like, well, that's unethical, that's whatever, you don't care, but that matter of fact, that's how it's designed to be. So understand that, because that will help you in fighting how addictive it is, and that leads us into number four. It will help us put healthy restrictions on our digital media life, and also while you're doing this, these restrictions include some accountability. Don't try to do it on your own. It can be a fun experiment. Do it with a group of friends, with your spouse, as a family. Me and my wife, we're trying to work through how to best do this in our lives individually and as a family right now. It's not easy, especially when you use digital media. I use it for work, for ministry. We're both taking courses online right now. And so, for instance, I had to be up late putting together this podcast episode past my own self-appointed kind of digital curfew, because I like to leave a little bit of time before I go to bed that's digital free to read a book or whatever. And so some of the ones we've been trying to do, the one I just mentioned is a little curfew where you're not using it past a certain point. Don't have a place in your house where you put all your electronics to charge at night. Don't keep them in your bedrooms or things like that. Don't have them at the table. Just really practical stuff. Turn off notifications. Delete your social media off your phone if you can. You can have it. Best probably would be to delete your whole account, but a lot of us can't do that. But maybe even delete it off your phone so you can still access it on your computer, but it's not always there. Have certain times you'll check your social media, maybe once in the morning, once in the evening, and then have a digital media fast. This is really helpful. When you go on a vacation and stuff, consider, turning off all your social media accounts and taking a break from that and really connecting with those meaningful relationships that you have right around you. So, those are some really practical ones that we tried to implement. And again, it's not easy. You won't do perfect at it, but every little bit helps, I think. And then number 5 is use digital media in a way that's Christ honoring, God honoring, that's Christ-like. Be a Christ-like content creator. That's something my professor hammers into his students all the time. These are all digital media students who will go on to be photographers, videographers, graphic designers, whatever. And we need to be not just consumers, but creators and creators of content that really brings glory to God and is a good testimony and witness to those around us. So
I've got a really good challenge for our listeners. Select at the very least, you can go up to an hour, you can do less than that. I do an hour of screen time lockdown. So if you have an iPhone, you can literally lock yourself out of your phone for an hour. Select an hour in your day that you don't need your phone. Have it every day. Spend time with your family for at least an hour. It's not that hard to
because it's
ask.
sad. It's sad how easy it is. I have kids. It's sad sometimes. I look up, I'm like, man, my kids are like playing and I'm missing out on time because I'm aimlessly scrolling through social media. Like, I'm never going to get that time back, and they need that interaction. Like, why, So there's better things we can be doing with it. We're not saying it's evil. We're not saying you can't have it. We're just saying be wise with how you use it.
It can be used for wonderful things. And, we talked earlier about how dangerous the digital identity is on social media. But, like I said, social media especially can be a relationship breaker, but it could also be relationship makers. I mean,
our ministry, our podcast ministry, we've had really great conversations and connections, and being able to share the gospel through social media, through other digital media platforms.
And I had one of our listeners is actually from a country called Malawi, which is in Africa. And he found us on social media, and that's where, that's how he gets the content. That's how they figured out that we're a podcast. So, we're reaching people all around the world because of social media. So it's not all bad, but like you said, be a Christ-like content creator, making sure that whatever we're doing it for the glory of God. And man.
Any concluding thoughts, guys?
I just gotta say, it's no small coincidence that Apple's icon is a bitten fruit.
Conspiracy theory.
I was like,
we need a conspiracy theory alert button.
We barely touched on conspiracy theories in this, but it'd be funny to do a whole episode.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Look through all of the conspiracy theories.
Just what are your thoughts? Anyway, concluding thoughts. I think this is all really interesting, and I think that there's a lot more to it than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
When people are on their social medias, on Facebook, on Instagram, like you said, it was designed to be addicting. And we might think we have full control over how much time we spend on there. But I mean, if you try to limit yourself, I guarantee it'll be difficult. It's very interesting stuff. But at the end of the day, whatever you do all to the glory of God, including, especially now in election season, how you post online, what you say to people is so important. And, that could make or break relationships. It's so important.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a throwback. We did an episode on social media and Christians and how we should act on social media a couple episodes ago. So if you're interested in that,
check it out.
Throwback, because this was more about some big picture stuff. But if you're looking for really practical, how should we really act on social media as Christians, go back to that one.
Yes.
We're living in crazy, mind-blowing times. I personally find this stuff super fascinating, and even if you're not into technology, it's into you. So you need to spend some more time learning about how it's affecting you. Seriously, guys. It's our job as Christians. So, Jared.
My more serious conclusional thought would be, as you're going through your day, whether it be on your phone or on a laptop or at work, just use wisdom with what you post. Use discernment on what you say, and get that wisdom and discernment from God's word.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for today. And speaking of social media and digital media, you should subscribe to us to get the most recent podcast downloaded to your device, and leave a review, a 5-star review. If you're not going to leave a 5-star review, then, don't worry, leaving it. Don't do it.
Seriously, we do want your honest feedback, though. So if you have any tips on how
maybe
to
just
make this,
privately, though, so not publicly. So,
we've gotten some wonderful feedback from people that have messaged us.
And some constructive criticism as well.
Exactly.
So we accept it. You can follow us on social media, on Facebook or Instagram. We are not on Twitter, as previously mentioned. And you can visit us at or do you say the Happy Holy Hour?
www.thehappyholyhour.org.
There it is, folks.
THHA.
Yeah, on there you'll find blog posts, videos, free resources, all sorts of stuff. So definitely check us out on there, and we'll see you next time on the Happy Holy Hour.